It's November, which means it is time to make a pumpkin pie, and I did not feel like buying a pie crust, so I decided to make one at home, and I have never successfully made a pie crust. So we added the flour and the butter and the sugar, and we are starting to mix it up and hoping that it goes well. Now you're supposed to add water until the crust forms into a loose ball, and then you start rolling it out. Now rolling it out is the most difficult part of making the pie crust, in my personal opinion. And it was not going well, so I ended up having to start it completely over, and fingers crossed that this crust will turn out, because I was not feeling lucky at this point. Now when I started rolling it out the second time, I wasn't sure if the flour was too dry by this point, but I was super lucky, because as you can see, it started to form the perfect circle, and I'm just going to attribute this to good luck and it being the first day of November when I made this crust, because when I put it in the pan, I was genuinely surprised that I had a usable pie crust on my hands.
So I just put the crust in the oven, but then I realized I was looking at my pumpkin pie recipe and it says to cook it in an unbaked crust. So I pulled it out. It's only in there for a couple minutes, so I think it'll be okay. And I'm gonna make the pumpkin pie filling and then put it in there. Always am making these small mistakes, but somehow, most of the time, it turns out okay, so fingers crossed.
I did not want to go to the store, so all the ingredients I'm using in today's pie crust are things I already had in my kitchen. And yes, I always have pumpkin on hand, because pumpkin puree is something you can use to bake anything, and I love baking. Anyway, so we had the eggs, the sugar, the cinnamon. You just load in as many spices as you want. I used nutmeg and cloves and cinnamon. And then I mixed that all together, and then I mixed it in with the pumpkin puree. And I didn't have sweetened condensed milk, but I used whipping cream. I think it turned out beautiful. This is actually the first time I've successfully made a pie crust. It may not win any awards for being beautiful, but at least it tastes good and it's usable.
In the oven, round 2.
And here's my very tasty piece of pie with some pumpkin pie whipping cream on top.